In this video with the AnKing, I'm going to go over how you prepare for your home and your away rotations, and I'll also talk a little bit and show you how to apply for your away rotations in medical school. Now, obviously, if you need help with anything, we've got a Patreon. We've got multiple very qualified people happy to help. If you like this and you like the whole playlist we're making here, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate the support. Now, preparing for these rotations is key. Once you've decided what specialty you want to do, this is really, really important because you want to really shine. You want to get letters of recommendation. You want whatever the highest grade is that they'll give you. That's all really important. So this is a very important step that you want to do. And the first thing you want to do is get to know the important person in the department. That's either the chair or the program director. The program director is usually the person who is actually interacting with residents and usually has more of a say on who actually gets into the residency. So I probably would lean on the program director more than the chair, but they're both very important, very influential people. And knowing those at your home department and getting a very good letter of recommendation or even phone calls from them to other departments is really, really going to help you. And that's why I say next thing here is network, network, network. And everybody always asks, what do I do? How do I network? How do I, this is hard for me. I want to offer a few points of advice here because I know this is difficult and I was asking the same questions. One way to network is to get to know the program director and the chair. Another way is get to know as many people in the department as you possibly can. And when you rotate with them, when you talk to them, if you're shadowing them, whatever it may be, find out what schools they went to. Where do they have connections? One of my research mentors had a connection at Penn State, and I got an interview there, and I'm pretty sure it was because of that. So being able to identify those things and write them down. Who has what connections at what place? Talk with residents. If you're really interested in going to a certain program, see if you can call a resident at that program. Just find out, sometimes I emailed program coordinators and said, hey, I'm really interested in this program. Could I talk with a resident? And they would get me connected with them and I could schedule a 10-minute phone call. And then they would give me phone numbers for other residents. So that's kind of how you network. And most of that is going to happen closer to when you actually apply. But getting to know everybody, getting to know all the residents, finding out where you should do your away rotation, this is really important. So don't neglect this step, especially for competitive stuff. This is absolutely key. The next thing I would do is set up a time where you could talk with maybe the program director, or at our school we had one of the department in dermatology. They would meet with medical students regularly and kind of be the liaison with medical students and give us advice. Meet with them regularly, twice a year if you have to. Figure out where do I need to be, what do I need to do to improve my application and get into this specialty, who should I network with, who should I be doing research with, all of those things. Just have a point of contact. The next thing I would do is read up on the specialty and know as many things as you can. I downloaded a dermatology flashcard deck, an Anki deck that I did over the course of my third year, just like 5 cards a day, nothing special, but it was enough for me to be able to recognize the basic stuff so that on my rotation I kind of knew what was going on. And then as I was going into my actual rotation, it was recommended by somebody that I go grab a specific textbook that's good for medical students, and so I did that. So find out from residents or medical students that are interested in that specialty, what should you be doing to prepare so that you know at least the basics about that specialty. Okay, performing well when you're on the rotations obviously is absolutely key. So one thing you want to do is be 15 minutes early. Always be early to everything. Never be late to anything. You could shoot yourself in the foot by being late once. And don't be asking to go home early either. If this is the specialty that you truly love, you don't want to be asking to go home. I do know somebody who went unranked at a school because they had been on like a 24-hour shift and asked if they could go home, and it was a surgical specialty. That was enough that they didn't get ranked at that school. So be early, and then don't try to get out of things early. Be really kind to everybody, and this is absolutely key. And I'll go to the next one here because this plays into that. Who you are is so much more important than what you know. They don't care if, like in my case when I was doing dermatology, they don't care if I know dermatology well. I'm signing up to be a derm resident because I want to learn dermatology. They're going to teach me. They care more, am I teachable, and do they want to work with me for 3 years? Am I the type of person they want to be around? So if you're kind to everybody, that's really going to play a big role. And that means be kind to the medical assistants, to the nurses, to the scrub techs, to everybody, because all of them notice and the attendings notice who you're being nice to. I do know of a case where somebody was super kind and wonderful to all of the attendings and residents, but was kind of rude behind their back to some of the MAs, and that made it up the chain, and they ended up not getting an interview where they had done an away rotation. So keep that in mind. Just be a nice person. Obviously, be who you are, but also don't worry if you don't know everything, because it's not key to getting a fantastic grade and good rotation. Another thing I found when I was in the derm clinics, I kept a piece of paper in my pocket, and dermatology clinics are very fast-paced, so I didn't have enough time to ask questions all the time. But I kept a piece of paper here, and if I had questions, I would write them down. If I noticed that the doctor said something, I would write it down, and then maybe at lunchtime or at the end of the day, I would say, hey, you mentioned this to this patient. I was wondering why. And I had it written down on my piece of paper, and I wrote down, like, I'm going to go, research this tonight or whatever. I was obviously very interested, and I think that goes a long way. They want to know that you care about their specialty more than the average medical student if that's what you're planning to do for the rest of your life. So do little things like that to show your interest. And then if you can, this is not possible in all cases, and in fact, I was not able to ever do this, but it was advice that I've heard from many other people. If you can get on a case report, especially on your away rotation, if you can get involved in research with somebody, that's going to go a long way for networking. If you can present at grand rounds, do just a small presentation on some research or a patient, a case report, whatever you get involved in, that goes a long way. People remember that you did a presentation, those kinds of things. Where I did an away rotation, they let all of us do like a quick 5-minute presentation at their grand rounds, and I had people during my interview day that commented on it and asked about it. So I think this is really important. It just kind of shows your face to the whole department. Okay, for the home rotation specifically, when would you do this? You'd want to try and squish it to the end of your third year if possible. And I realize for everybody that's not possible, because sometimes your elective time gets scheduled at the beginning of third year and there's nothing you can do about it. That's okay. If that's what happens, there's nothing you can do about it. But try and do it at the end of third year. If it is at the beginning of third year, sometimes you can do a rotation again at the beginning of your fourth year. The reason I say that is because at the end of your third year, you've really picked up how to do presentations well, how to do good chart reviews. You probably know a lot more medicine, and so you look better. You shine a lot more. It's also a lot closer to application season when you can be asking for letters of recommendation, things like that. So that's important. Again, I'm just going to keep stressing this because it really is important. Network during your home rotation. Every single person you work with, ask them, where did they train? Did they like it? Where would they recommend that you go for your training? Where would they recommend you do an away rotation? All of those things. Asking these questions is really going to go a long way. You might be lucky enough that one person makes a phone call for you, and that's all you need to get an interview at the place of your dreams. So always be asking those kinds of questions. And then use your rotation at your home rotation to get your letters. And this is advice I give everybody. Plan in advance. So I knew kind of in advance who I wanted to get my letters from because I had shadowed or done research or whatever. And I asked those 3 people beforehand, would you be willing to write me a letter of recommendation? If so, I would like to schedule extra time to work with you during my home rotation. So I had a 4-week rotation, and I scheduled 3 of those weeks working with my 3 mentors that were going to write letters for me. And that was only because I knew in advance who I wanted it to be, and I made sure I got time with them in clinic so that they could write me a stronger letter. I think that planning in advance is going to go a very long way. Now, in some of my other videos I've made on rotations, I recommend every rotation you go on, especially if you don't know what you want to go into, you should be planning to get a letter of recommendation from those. Even someone like me, where I applied to dermatology, I ended up getting an internal medicine and a pediatrics letter of recommendation because I needed to apply to prelim years in those specialties. So always be looking for letters of recommendation. But once you've identified your specialty, narrow it down, figure out exactly who you want it to be, and then try and get extra time with them. And then if you can, rotate with the program director or the chair. If you can get a letter from them, even better. This is generally a very good person to get a letter from, but you want it to be a strong letter. A weak letter from a strong person is not as good as a strong letter from somebody who's less well known. So make sure that you know them well enough, you're able to rotate with them, that they could really comment on those things. Okay, applying for your away rotations. At the end of this video, I'm actually going to go on the VSLO website and show you what it looks like so that you can do that. But generally what you're going to need when you're applying, and this is about April time period, you're going to need your CV. I got another video in this playlist that will be about your resume, so watch that. You might need a personal statement. Sometimes they do. This does not have to be the same personal statement, probably shouldn't be the same personal statement that you use for your official application months later. You might need letters of recommendation. Oftentimes it's just one. And so like I said, it's nice if you've done your home rotation and you kind of know what's going on. I would recommend doing your home rotation before your away rotation. Sometimes you're going to do a lot of paperwork. Yeah, they required all my immunizations. I had to have my COVID shot. I had to BLS, whatever. And I'll show you that when I get on the website here in just a minute. But each school has their own recommendations, and you need to know that. When you're applying for this, the timeline, this is kind of what it was for me at least. And it looks like it's very similar this year as well. So a year later, around April 1st is when things are going to start opening up for the fall. And that's generally good. So most people are going to be ending their third year, May, June. And then you're starting your fourth year. You want to take step 2 in that time period. And then as you get application seasons, or the applications are going to go in September, October, and interviews happen shortly after that. So you want to be doing your away rotation sometime between May and September. Sometimes it's okay to do them later in the season, October, November, especially if you're doing multiple. But just kind of keep this in mind. Be preparing so you have your CV and everything ready to go by this time. Away rotations, I put a little S on here because sometimes, should I do one? Should I do many? Should I even do one at all? That depends. For competitive specialties, it's becoming increasingly the norm to do away rotations. And, for dermatology, if you do an away rotation at the right place, that can guarantee you an interview. So doing more rotations obviously helps. It is very expensive. So my first tip is go where you want to interview. That's really important, but also where they're going to interview you. I know, for example, some Ivy League schools, they'll happily accept everybody that wants to do an away rotation, but that doesn't really do anything for you getting an interview. So it's less likely. Whereas some schools, if you do an away rotation there, you're almost guaranteed to get an interview as long as you perform well. So I would go where you want to get an interview, but also do some research. Look at how people did in past years. There's a lot of things on Reddit, spreadsheets and whatever, where people commented on whether people, do it, whatever. So that's my thing there. Just realize this is going to be a lot of money and a lot of time. A lot of times you end up doing extra elective time that isn't necessarily required to graduate. So you'll be still working in April or June when all your other friends are done and basically graduated. It is expensive too. I took my family and we ended up spending over a couple $1,000s just to find an Airbnb. So just realize that it is very expensive. This is kind of a complicated topic, and I don't know how much to comment on it because I've heard things that it's true and that it's not true, but I'm going to bring it up just so you're aware of it. If you apply to like 20 away rotations and you get accepted to all 20 and then reject a bunch of those acceptances, it's possible that those programs may ghost you and never offer you an interview. That was the case for me. I didn't actually get acceptances. I got my first acceptance and then I canceled everything else. I didn't get an interview from any of those other like 7 programs. But I know some people have not had that experience. So just kind of have that in mind that you don't want to apply to all your favorite schools and then cancel a bunch of them and then only get an interview at one of them. So have some like backup away rotations that are more mid-tier, less reach programs. And then try and do away rotations that are, it's going to be very similar as your home rotation. My advice is going to be overall very similar, but you're going to put in more effort. Because they don't know you very well. So you want more time there at the hospital, put more effort in studying, try and get case reports or research or whatever sort of networking you can do while you're there for that month. And then next, I'm going to go and show you what it actually looks like to do the application for the away rotations, and we'll end with that. Okay, this is what the application actually looks like. You're going to have to fill out a bunch of information on the dashboard. You have your documents here. You can see I upload a bunch of stuff like BLS, background checks, immunizations, whatever. You might have to get a bunch from your school. But this is the key part here is, so you'll fill out information here, but the find electives is where you're going to find stuff. So I've gone through here and chose that my specialty I want to be dermatology. And I've got a bunch of programs here. So you can do that, but you can also choose, do you want to do research? Do you want to do clinical? Do you want to do whatever? Do you want it to be a 2-week rotation, a 4-week rotation, whatever it may be? I think, all of those are fine. And then you can go through and kind of search and then save things. If you save them, they'll pop up here. I would recommend finding what you want to do and being well prepared before April so that once that date opens, you can get it. Some places are kind of first come, first serve. Other places, less so. But I'm just going to search Wake Forest here because I know about them. And you can see, you can actually apply to theirs right now. If I clicked on learn more, it would pop up. It would show a description of what their course is like. It's 4 weeks. I could go and select the date range, and you can apply to multiple date ranges for one place. And then you could apply, and then it has the information on this is what requirements you need to apply there. You just need a transcript, a CV, and a photograph, and that's it. If we go back and find this other elective, if we do OHSU, you can see this elective may not be applied to at the moment. And if you click on it, you'll see they require quite a bit more information. They want a letter of intent, they want a CV and resume, they want your letter of recommendation from somebody, they want all sorts of stuff. And you can't apply to them yet, but if you click on their institution summary, then you click on that, it'll give you information on OHSU, and it'll say, you can see they can start beginning to submit requests on May 1st and then be notified on, April 1st, be notified on May 1st. And you can see it's actually March 29th, so this is opening up very soon. But you can use this to kind of get a better sense of what's going on with each place. So really, other than clicking on each of these and finding what you want, saving them, adding them up to your save electives here, clicking on them individually, figuring out which documents you need to upload. It is quite a long process, unfortunately, but you just have to identify how many you want to do. I could only do one away rotation during my year, and I think I ended up applying to 6 or 7 and was fine with that. So that's kind of my advice for the home and away rotations, and hopefully this video was helpful. Thanks for learning with the AnKing. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here, as well as follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Patreon. That is at AnKingMed. Also, feel free to reach out via email or check out our website, ankingmed.com, for more tips and tricks.